The silent rumor. In the deep silence of the galaxy, rumors traveled faster than light. It began with a whisper, passed from one merchant ship to another, from smugglers to pirates, from frightened officers to arrogant kings. The whisper said that something had awakened near the forgotten edge of the Sol system, something vast, something human. The alien empires laughed at first. They had always mocked Earth, the so-called backward world that clung to its fragile blue planet. But the laughter never lasted long because every rumor carried the same detail, the same frightening picture. A fleet of black warships, darker than space itself, had been seen. Drifting in the void, one crew swore they saw a shadow swallowing stars as they passed. They tried to scan it, but their systems returned nothing but static. Another convoy reported that their escort ships vanished when they entered the dark region. No wreckage, no signals, just silence. The Galactic Council dismissed these claims as nonsense, calling them stories meant to scare the weak. But silence has power, and when silence repeats again and again, even the boldest voices begin to tremble. The name soon spread everywhere. The dark matter warships of Earth. The Council gathered. In their great chamber, tall pillars of alien stone rising high above them, the air thick with the buzzing of many species. One senator hissed, "Earth cannot create such weapons. They are weak. They are too small to matter." Another whispered, "Then tell me, where did those fleets vanish? Who has that kind of power if not the humans?" The debate grew louder, fear twisting beneath the arrogance, but still they refused to admit it. For centuries they had forced Earth into the role of a minor world. Restricted trade, restricted weapons, restricted fleets, yet somewhere in the silence of space, Earth's shadow ships were moving. In the back rooms of the Council, secret meetings began. Ambassadors demanded answers. Generals ordered more scouts into the void, but the scouts never returned. Their signals would appear for a moment, then vanish into a sea of black static. One commander, shaking with fear, sent his last words before his transmission cut. "They are here. They are watching us. The humans are not what you think." That single message spread across the Council faster than fire, and for the first time the mighty empires hesitated. They began to wonder if Earth had been hiding its true strength all along, far from the Council's shining halls, common. People whispered in markets and docking bays. Some said the humans had built these warships in secret, feeding on the energy of collapsed stars. Others swore the ships were not made by humans at all, but by the universe itself, and Earth had simply claimed them. Merchants prayed that the stories were lies, because trade routes that crossed near Sol were now seen as cursed. No one wanted to pass too close to Earth, no one wanted to risk being swallowed by the silent fleet. Even pirates avoided those regions, and pirates feared almost nothing. Meanwhile, on Earth, the humans said nothing. They did not answer the Council's demands. They did not explain the vanished fleets. They did not send ambassadors to calm the Yi. Storm. Instead, the dark warships began to appear more often, always at the edge of known space, never staying long enough for anyone to approach. A shadow on sensors, a shape blotting out the stars, a silence that made whole crews hold their breath. The Council tried to hide the truth, but fear cannot be hidden. And soon, even the great empires began to lose their balance. Whispers turned into warnings. Warnings turned into terror. The first true panic came when an entire empire's fleet of 30 ships vanished near the edge of Sol. 30 ships, gone without a trace, without a scream, without even debris to mark their graves. The empire's ruler demanded vengeance, demanded answers, but the Council could only offer silence. For how could they fight shadows? How could they strike an enemy that did not speak, did not move, and yet destroyed with ease? The rumors grew, stronger now, no longer whispers, but sharp voices echoing across the stars. Earth has returned, Earth has awakened, Earth's dark matter warships are here. And still, Earth said nothing. No threats, no warnings, no boasts, no declarations, only silence and the slow spread of the dark shadows across the galaxy. The Council began to understand a truth far greater than they wished to admit. It was not the firepower that frightened them. It was not the technology. It was not even the unknown destruction of fleets. It was the silence. Because silence meant control. Silence meant confidence. Silence meant Earth no longer cared for what the galaxy thought. The silence itself was a weapon, and so the galaxy trembled, not because Earth fired a single shot, not because they issued any threat, but because everyone now knew without doubt that the day the shadows moved in full force, nothing in the galaxy could stand against them, and the silence promised that day was coming. Shadows in the void. The void between stars had always been silent, but now that silence carried weight, merchants who once traveled boldly across the dark lanes now avoided entire sectors. Pilots swore they saw shapes moving where nothing should move, and every time someone dared to chase the shadows, they vanished forever. The Galactic Council tried to reassure the galaxy. They called the stories lies. They said no ship could escape. Their scanners, but behind closed doors their fleets were breaking. One after another sent into the Sol frontier, one after another lost in the dark. A single shadow was dangerous enough, but now whispers spoke of many. A fleet, a hidden armada, waiting in the cold void like predators before the strike. One freighter captain returned after brushing against the shadows, his voice shaking, his eyes wild. He said the warships were not made of metal, but of night itself. He said their hulls bent the light around them, swallowing stars whole. He claimed his ship's engine screamed as if space itself resisted him. The council dismissed him as insane, but his words spread across the markets like fire. The phrase became legend, warships born of the void. Scouts dared to map the dark zones again, but their logs only returned static, their black box records empty except for one dreadful sound. The sound of silence too heavy, too deep, the silence of systems that were no longer there. One alien technician replayed the last signal again and again. He whispered that the silence felt alive, as if it was watching him. He destroyed the recording soon after, but the memory haunted him. Meanwhile, the empires grew restless. The Jareth Dominion armed more fleets, their generals shouting that humans were weak and must be crushed quickly. The Vera Combine urged patience, warning that the shadows were not normal ships but something older, something hidden for centuries. The council argued until their voices broke, but all their words could not erase the truth. Something was moving in the dark, and it belonged to Earth. In one star system at the edge of neutral space, a convoy of 6 alien warships encountered the first undeniable proof. The ships traveled in perfect formation, their scanners stretched to maximum, their weapons charged. At first, the void seemed empty, but then the stars began to vanish one by one, swallowed by something they could not track. The commander shouted orders, weapons fired into the dark, but their beams vanished as if consumed. Then the black outline of a warship appeared, massive, silent and endless. It moved without engines, gliding as though it was part of the void itself. The convoy fired everything they had, torpedoes, beams, rail cannons. But the weapons melted into silence, and then, with no warning, the alien ships began to break, not explode, not burn, but simply crumble into fragments torn apart by invisible force. The last transmission sent was a single word, repeated 3 times: dark matter. Ships. When the report reached the council, the chamber fell silent. Even the most arrogant senators could not deny what was now certain. The humans had unleashed something the galaxy could not fight, something no science could explain. And if one ship could erase 6, then what could a fleet of them do? The common people of the galaxy felt it first. Trade collapsed, markets froze. Ships refused to travel near Sol. Children whispered tales of the human shadows that ate suns. Some worlds even began to pray to Earth, believing the shadows were not weapons but gods in disguise. Fear spread faster than any fleet could move, and fear gave the shadows more power than any battle ever could. On Earth, the silence remained. No speeches, no warnings, no declarations of war. The humans simply let the shadows drift where they pleased, and the galaxy shook each time they appeared. Some believed Earth was waiting for a reason. Others believed Earth was waiting for the galaxy to kneel, but no one doubted that the humans were in control. The void belonged to them now, one alien. Scholars studied the ancient archives, his claws trembling as he read. He found fragments of old human records, speaking of experiments with dark matter drives, weapons that could bend space, ships that could hide within the fabric of the universe. The scholar whispered to his peers, They were not weak, they were only hiding, they were only waiting. And those words spread faster than fire because everyone already feared they were true. In every corner of the galaxy, voices began to ask the same question. If the shadows are only the beginning, then what else has Earth kept hidden? What weapons sleep in the silence? What monsters wait in the void? And how long before Earth decides to unleash them all? The Galactic Council's fear. The Galactic Council chamber had always been a place of arrogance. It was built on a grand world of endless spires and shining towers, a monument to the power of the great empires. Inside, voices once rose with pride, with confidence, with mockery of those they called weak. But now, when the subject was Earth, the voices trembled. The chamber filled with hundreds of species, wings fluttering, claws scratching, tentacles twitching in unease. Holographic screens showed the latest reports, fleets vanishing near Sol, colonies left in silence, warships erased without trace. The counselors spoke loudly, but none of them believed their own words. Earth cannot have such power, one shouted. They are nothing but a minor planet. Then explain the void. Ships, another hissed. Explain the 30 warships gone without a scream. The chamber fell into chaos, each empire blaming the other for weakness, each trying to hide its own fear. In the shadows of the hall, the envoys of smaller species whispered among themselves. For centuries, they had watched the great empires bully Earth, cutting its trade, limiting its fleets, mocking its culture. And now those same empires were trembling, their claws curling, their spines stiff with terror. For the first time, the small powers saw hope, and they clung to it like fire in the dark. If Earth truly held such warships, then perhaps the age of the Council was ending. The High Speaker of the Council tried to bring order, his voice booming across the chamber. He demanded unity, he demanded strength, he demanded the truth. But his eyes betrayed him. They darted to the dark corners of the room as though expecting shadows to rise even there. He asked the assembled senators, "What are the humans hiding and how do we stop them?" No one answered, because no one dared. At the edges of the chamber, human ambassadors sat in silence. For years they had been ignored, their voices drowned by the arrogant empires. Now when eyes turned to them, they said nothing. They did not defend, they did not threaten, they did not explain. They simply sat with calm faces, their silence heavier than any speech, and that silence burned deeper into the council than any weapon behind the scenes. Generals and admirals debated in secret war councils. One argued that a combined fleet of all empires could crush Earth before it unleashed more shadows. Another shouted that such a move would only doom them faster. How do you fight darkness itself, he asked. How do you fight a fleet that cannot be seen, that cannot be touched? Their maps filled with red zones, sectors where ships had vanished, and every day those zones grew larger. One empire, desperate, sent spies to Earth. The spies slipped into orbit disguised as merchants, scanning for shipyards, for fleets, for bases. They found cities, they found people, they found industry, but they did not find warships. Because the dark matter fleet did not rest in orbit. It did not sit in docks. It drifted in the void itself, waiting where no eyes could see. The spies vanished before they could return. Their last message was filled with static and then silence. The galaxy's fear only deepened. Merchants stopped trading with Earth, but still goods left Earth's ports carried by silent ships that no one dared stop. Pirates tried once to raid a convoy near Mars. Their ships simply never came back. Whispers spread that even the pirates' families had vanished, as though the shadows erased not only fleets but bloodlines. Fear turned into myth. Myth turned into religion. Some worlds built shrines to the silent fleet, offering prayers that the shadows would pass them by. Inside the council chamber, the debates grew desperate. "Strike now before it is too late," shouted one voice. "Bow now before it is too late," whispered another. The High Speaker's hands trembled as he slammed the floor with his staff. Earth must be confronted. Their fleet must be brought into the light, or we will lose control of the galaxy, he cried. But when he turned to the human ambassadors, they said nothing. Their silence was colder than any threat. Finally, one of the oldest counselors, her scales faded with age, stood and spoke. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "we were wrong about the humans." The chamber grew silent. All eyes turned toward her. They asked for peace, and we gave them chains. They asked for respect, and we gave them mockery. They asked for time, and we gave them war. Her words struck deep, her voice heavy with the weight of history. And now they have shown us what they kept hidden, and we are afraid. The chamber broke into chaos again, some roaring for vengeance, some begging for surrender, but no one could deny it anymore. The galaxy trembled because Earth no longer asked. Earth no longer begged, Earth no longer explained. The humans had unleashed their shadows, and the shadows were enough to bring the Council to its knees, and still, the humans said nothing. Only silence. Always silence. Because the humans understood, something the galaxy never did. Silence is the loudest weapon of all. The first strike for weeks, the galaxy drowned in silence. The Council argued, empires prepared, but Earth's shadow fleet did not move. The warships drifted in the void, dark and patient, watching, waiting. Some believed they would never act, that they were only a weapon of fear, but fear is never enough for the proud, and pride always makes someone strike first. The Koran Empire broke the silence. They had always hated humans, calling them parasites of the stars. Their emperor stood before his fleets and declared, "The shadows are tricks, nothing more. I will burn Earth to ash and prove the galaxy wrong." His words were broadcast to every world, his banners lit across the skies, and his fleet, 200 strong, launched toward the Sol system. The galaxy watched with held breath, waiting to see if Earth's silence would break. As the Koran ships entered the dark zones near Pluto, their scanners struggled, systems flickered, engines strained, the void itself felt heavier. The commanders laughed nervously. "Just interference, nothing more," they said. But the younger pilots whispered of shadows moving in the dark. One by one, the stars began to vanish, swallowed by something vast. Then, without warning, a single warship emerged. It was not built of metal as they knew it. Its hull shimmered like a broken mirror, bending light, bending space. No lights shone on its surface. No engines burned at its back. It drifted like death itself. Silent, endless, watching. The Koran fleet fired immediately. Beams of plasma, storms of missiles, lances of rail fire. But every weapon simply disappeared, swallowed by the ship's black skin. No sparks, no explosions, only silence. Then the warship answered. A single pulse of dark energy rippled outward, slow and heavy, like the beating of a heart, the nearest. Koran battleship cracked open without fire. Its hull split apart as if space itself had torn it. The crew's screams never reached the comms, only silence. The pulse struck again, another ship crumbled and another. Panic swept the fleet, formations broke, commanders screamed for retreat. But the void would not let them go. From the darkness around them, more shadows appeared. 10 warships, then 20, their black hulls blotting out the stars. The Koran fleet was surrounded, 200 ships reduced to prey. The humans never spoke, never sent warnings, never demanded surrender. The shadows simply advanced, slow and patient, crushing every ship that dared resist, and within an hour, the proud Koran fleet was nothing but silence. The galaxy watched in horror. News spread faster than fire, faster than light. Every world echoing the same words. The Koran are gone. Their fleet is gone. Their emperor is silent. The once proud empire, feared across the stars, was broken in a single strike. And still, the humans said nothing. No message, no victory speech, no demand. Only silence. In the council chamber, panic reigned. Some demanded war. Others begged for surrender. Most simply trembled. "How do we fight this?" one senator screamed. "How do we fight shadows that destroy fleets without a shot?" No one had an answer, because the truth was clear. The galaxy had just witnessed the power of Earth's dark matter fleet, and no empire, no coalition, no council could stand against it. But the humans had sent a message even if they spoke no words. The message was written in silence, written in the shattered wrecks of 200 ships. The message was simple: strike at Earth, and the void will answer. On the broken worlds of the Koran, riots erupted. Their people had watched their proud fleets vanish and their emperor retreat into silence. Some called for vengeance, others whispered that the humans should be obeyed, because only fools dared to fight shadows that could erase stars. Meanwhile, in the far reaches of space, the warships returned to the dark. They drifted back into the void, disappearing once more, leaving behind nothing but fear. The galaxy trembled, for now it was clear. The shadows were not just rumors, not just threats, they were real, and they had chosen their first victim. And the worst part, the part that made every empire lose sleep, was the question left unanswered. If this was only one strike, only one fleet, then how many more shadows were still waiting in the dark? The fear spreads. The destruction of the Corran fleet spread across the stars like wildfire. No messenger ships were sent, no official reports delivered. Yet every world knew within days, 200 ships had vanished. An entire fleet erased in silence, and everyone knew who was responsible. Merchants whispered of it in docking bays, their voices hushed, their eyes darting. Farmers spoke of it in fields beneath alien suns, their hands trembling on their tools. Children repeated it in the streets as if it were a ghost story. The shadows took them. The humans sent the void after them. Even pirates, who once feared no one, refused to speak of soul at all. They avoided Earth's sector as if the void itself had teeth. The Corran people demanded answers. They cried out for vengeance. But no answers came. Their emperor, once bold, now remained silent. His speeches stopped, his banners dimmed, because he knew what the galaxy now knew. Earth had weapons beyond imagination, and no empire could challenge them without being swallowed whole. The council chamber fell into chaos. Senators screamed at each other, their voices echoing through the vast stone halls. Some demanded immediate war, to combine every fleet and strike Earth before it was too late. Others begged for surrender, for peace, for mercy. And still, the human ambassadors sat in silence. Their calm faces betrayed no fear, no anger, no triumph. They simply waited as if time itself belonged to them. Beyond the council, panic turned into superstition. On desert worlds, priests declared the shadows to be divine judgment. On frozen colonies, miners left offerings at the edge of their mines, praying the shadows would not take them. Some called the humans gods, others called them demons. But everyone agreed on one thing. Earth was no longer weak. Earth was the hand that guided the void. Trade collapsed near human space. Whole star routes were abandoned. Markets broke down. Economies shattered. The brave few who still traveled whispered of seeing dark shapes in the distance, silent ships watching them but never moving. One freighter captain returned pale and shaking, swearing that a human warship followed him for 3 days. It never attacked. It never spoke. But when he tried to scan it, the stars around him went black. He begged never to be sent near Sol again. The fear grew heavier with each story. Fleets that once boasted of their power now kept close to their homeworlds. Admirals who once mocked humanity now drilled their soldiers in silence. But every soldier knew the truth. Their training was worthless against shadows. How could a blaster stop the night? How could a torpedo strike something that bent the stars? On smaller worlds, riots erupted. Citizens demanded their rulers make peace with Earth, demanded they surrender before the shadows came. Some planets sent secret envoys to humans, offering resources, loyalty, even blood. They begged to be spared. If the shadows rose again, the humans gave no answer. They did not promise mercy, they did not threaten vengeance, they remained silent. And that silence spread more fear than words ever could. One scholar stood in front of the council and declared, "The shadows are not ships, they are symbols, they are reminders of what we have done." His voice echoed in the chamber, trembling but strong. For centuries we mocked Earth. We caged. Them we denied them, and in silence they built this. Some senators laughed bitterly, others shouted at him to be quiet, but many lowered their heads, because deep down they knew he was right. The Corran defeat was not just a loss of ships, it was the loss of certainty. The galaxy had always believed in its own power, its fleets, its armies, its council. Now, all of it seemed meaningless. For what use was an empire if a single human warship could erase it in silence? Whispers grew darker still. If humans had revealed this much, what else were they hiding? If they had shadows of war now, what had they? Kept waiting for tomorrow. Some feared Earth commanded not one fleet but hundreds. Others whispered of weapons that could swallow suns, of engines that could erase time itself. The galaxy trembled not because of what it saw, but because of what it could not see, and through it all Earth remained quiet. No speeches, no threats, no celebration, only silence. A silence that spread faster than fire, heavier than gravity, more terrifying than war. The galaxy did not fear Earth's victory in battle. It feared the moment Earth chose to rise fully from the void, because on that day, no empire, no council, no army would remain. Only silence and the shadows drifting across the stars, Earth's silent answer. The Galactic Council could not wait any longer. Fear had broken trade. Riots spread through colonies. Entire fleets refused to sail. If they did not act, the galaxy itself would collapse. So the High Speaker called for a final session, the largest in centuries. Every seat was filled. Every empire present, their voices heavy with desperation. The chamber echoed with demands. "We must confront Earth," one shouted. "Make them explain their shadows." "We must surrender," another whispered. "Bow before it is too late." Others demanded war, to unite every fleet and strike the humans while they remained silent. The debate raged for hours, but no decision brought comfort, because deep down they all feared the same truth. It was not Earth waiting for them, it was the void itself. At last the council voted. They would send envoys to Earth, not to beg, not to surrender, but to demand. They would stand as the rulers of the galaxy and force humans to reveal their purpose. A fleet of white diplomatic vessels was assembled, escorted by warships hidden in the shadows. And so the mission began. The galaxy's eyes fixed on Seoul. The envoys arrived at the edge of Earth's system. They hailed the planet, broadcasting in every known frequency. "We, the Council, demand audience," they declared. "We demand to know the meaning of your dark warships." Silence answered them. The envoys tried again, louder, harsher. "We command you as subjects of the Council, speak." Again, silence. Then the shadows moved. One warship appeared in the distance, drifting from the void, its hull bending light, its presence swallowing the stars. The Council's escorts locked, weapons, their captains sweating in silence. But the human ship did not fire, it only moved closer. The envoys shouted through their comms, their voices breaking. "We come in peace, we come to speak, we demand your words." The warship loomed, endless, silent, dreadful. Another shadow appeared, then another. Soon the void was filled with black shapes, drifting around the envoys like predators circling prey. No weapons fired, no beams cut across the dark. Only silence heavier than the weight of suns. The envoys begged now, no longer demanding. "Please, we only wish to talk, we only wish for peace." But the humans gave no answer. The shadows drifted closer, their black hulls blotting out the stars. The diplomatic fleet's systems flickered, engines strained, scanners broke. The escorts prepared to fire, but the High Speaker shouted through the comms, "Do not shoot, we are not here for war." And so they floated, surrounded by warships that never spoke, never moved faster than shadows. Hours passed, but to the envoys it felt like eternity. At last, a signal came. It was not words, it was not language, it was only a sound. A low pulse, heavy and slow like the beating of a vast heart. The sound shook their ships, rattled their bones, pressed against their minds. Some fell to their knees, others covered their ears, though no ears could block it. The message was simple, even without words. "You are not in control," the envoys begged. Again, desperate. "Please, humans of Earth, what do you want?" But no voice answered, no transmission came. The shadows simply turned away, drifting back into the void, and then they vanished, swallowed by the darkness once more. The diplomatic fleet was left alone, trembling, broken in spirit. Their mission ended not with peace, not with war, but with silence. When they returned to the council, their faces were pale, their voices weak. What did they say? the senators demanded. The High Speaker whispered the only truth he could. They said nothing, and that is worse than words. The chamber fell into silence. Because everyone understood the humans had answered, and their answer was silence. Across the galaxy, the fear deepened. It was no longer about fleets destroyed or shadows seen. It was about the silence that spoke louder than any threat. It meant the humans did not see the Council as equals, did not see the empires as rulers. It meant Earth no longer needed to explain itself to anyone. The galaxy trembled because silence meant dominance, and dominance meant the end of everything they knew. The galaxy trembles. The galaxy held its breath. Every empire, every colony, every station waited for Earth's next move. The failed envoy mission had broken the Council, their pride shattered, their authority gone. The humans had spoken with silence, and that silence still echoed in every heart. Worlds trembled, fleets hid, rulers whispered in fear. But Earth had not fired again. The shadows remained still in the void. Some began to hope it was over, that the dark matter fleet was only a warning, but the hope was fragile, thin as dust, and it shattered the moment the shadows moved again. This time, they did not wait for an attack. They spread across the stars, gliding silently into systems. Far from Sol, one appeared above a mining colony, drifting like a mountain in the sky. Another hovered over a trade hub, blocking the suns with its endless hull. More appeared in the outer reaches of rival empires, their presence alone enough to empty whole planets. No words, no fire, no blood, only shadows and silence. The galaxy froze. Entire fleets refused to engage. Commanders shut down their weapons. Citizens hid in their homes, because everyone knew to fire first was to be erased. The warships did not strike, they only watched. And that watching was worse than battle, because it told the galaxy the humans were not afraid. The humans were in control. Then came the moment that broke the stars. The Council gathered once more, desperate to restore order. The High Speaker rose, his voice shaking but still strong. "We must stand united, or we will lose everything," he declared. But before he could speak again, the chamber's lights dimmed. The walls shook, the air grew heavy, and the great holographic screens went black. In the darkness, a signal broke through. It was not a Council transmission, not from any empire, it was from Earth. For the first time, humanity spoke. The voice was calm, steady, without anger, without pride. "You were warned," it said, echoing across every world, every ship, every star. "We asked for peace and you gave us chains, and we asked for respect and you gave us mockery, and we asked for silence and you gave us war." The voice paused, heavy, endless, like the weight of the void itself. "Now you will understand our silence." As the message ended, the shadows moved in unison, across the galaxy. Every dark matter warship shifted position at the same moment. They aligned above colonies, trade stations, fleets, worlds, not firing, not speaking, only waiting. The galaxy trembled as if the stars themselves held their breath, because now every empire knew one truth. Their lives depended not on their weapons, not on their rulers, but on Earth's choice. The Council broke apart that day. Some empires surrendered openly, their leaders begging Earth for mercy. Others collapsed into chaos, their citizens rioting, demanding surrender. Even the proudest fleets powered down their engines, choosing silence over defiance, because no one wished to be the next Corinne. No one wished to vanish without a sound. And yet, Earth did not strike. The shadows lingered, always watching, always present, but never unleashing their full power. It was worse than destruction. It was domination without war. The galaxy now lived in the grip of silence, every world bending to it, every empire trembling at the thought that one day Earth might finally decide to end the quiet. In the centuries to come, they would tell stories of that day, the day Earth's voice filled the stars, the day the shadows spread across every world, the day the galaxy trembled not from fire, but from silence, because silence was power, and the humans had mastered it. And so the galaxy lived under Earth's shadow, not conquered by weapons, not enslaved by armies, but bound by fear, by silence, by the promise of shadows that never left. The humans had changed the order of the stars forever, and everyone knew that if the silence was ever broken, the galaxy itself would end.